how did I become a musician? Well, we didn't have a great deal of music in our house. Dad had an old mandolin, and he was harvesting peas, and we took that old mandolin out into the paddock, and we were playing with it as kids, and we actually left it out there. We made a little fort out of the pea straw, and at the end of harvest, Dad would burn the paddock and burnt the mandolin. We got into a lot of struggle, a lot of strife that day. I think we got paddling across our backside. But how did I become a musician? Well, my older brother Matthew, he got a guitar, and he was playing that guitar day in and day out. And anything that he could do, I could do better. So that was the main inspiration. And my father bought a youth hostel on the east coast of Tasmania, and youth hostelers would come through on a regular basis, and they'd pick up the guitars. Dad would have guitars there just for the hostelers to play, and he refused to have a television or any sort of recorded medium, and so he was really keen on people making their own entertainment. So the hostelers would come through and play songs, and we would pick up the guitars and learn songs off them. So that was our sort of first introduction to any sort of played music. He was very big on going to the Longford Folk Festival every year, and we'd always go there with him from about 15 on. So I went every year for 5 years, and we had camp there for the big weekend, and lots of campfires and singing songs, and knocking on heaven's door till about 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But a big introduction to all the folk tunes. So that was my first introduction. I was really keen to be a sax player, and because my mother and father didn't have much money, I stacked shelves at a supermarket in Launceston, and picked up boxes at the supermarket until I had enough money for a down payment for a saxophone. And as well as learning guitar, I was trying to learn saxophone at the same time as soon as I bought one. And at grade 12, some friends of mine were starting a band, and they didn't have a bass player, so I think a tuba player was playing bass at the time, and he didn't have the sort of action right. And because I could play guitar and I knew a bit about saxophone, they said, well, you can play bass. And so my first band was a jazz band with Scott Tinkler, who's gone on to be a fantastic trumpet player, an ARIA award-winning trumpet player, and Ben Brinkhoff and Ben Holgate and Scott Scooter Campbell too. So that was my first sort of band, a jazz band. After that, I got into an acoustic duo with Mark Eadie and Stuart Corrick, and my brother Matt and I started a punk band. So I was in a jazz band, an acoustic trio, and a punk band all at the same time, so that was a great meld of music. And then I joined a theatre company and worked in a theatre company playing music and touring around Tasmania, doing shows, theatre and education shows. And after that, I really wanted to travel the world with my guitar and sort of do a Billy Bragg and busk my way around the world. So I sort of left Tassie and didn't get back there for 2.5 years, and did 2.5 years on the road, sort of busking and working and picking up whatever work I could find, and playing in subways in London and through across England and through Canada as well. Got back to Australia after 2.5 years and sort of worked out what I was going to do, and I happened to come through Sydney. I thought, oh, this is pretty good. A friend of mine was going to a theatre school in Sydney, and I dropped in on her, and she showed me around this theatre school, and I was going, wow, this is pretty flash. So I thought, well, I've done some acting, I've done a bit of music, I think I'll give acting a really hard go. So I went back to Tasmania and auditioned for NIDA, and I got in, and studied there for, came back to Sydney and studied there for a couple of years. And at the end of my second year, the head of the course sat me down and said, just put your cowboy hat on and pick up your guitar and hit the road. So he wasn't that keen on me being an actor. And I said, but I want to do both. And he said, no, I think you should go off and be a muso. I hated him at the time, but maybe he was right. Yeah. I still hate him.